I'm not proficient enough at 76 to make a video like I was an advertising agency, but I'm trying to give you an example of what's going on in Canada. And there is absolutely no spousal protection. In other words, if you're a spouse and you have joint tenancy and you live together and are married forever until one dies, you can wind up losing the matrimonial home. You only wind up with half, as if you were separated or divorced. And, you know, that's completely unfair and unjust. And what's worse is that the severance of your joint tenancy can be done by a spouse, just to be mean, in secret. So what I'm attempting to do here is make the world aware of properties in Ontario and most of Canada are an unsafe investment. Mortgage theft, property theft, mortgage fraud, estate embezzlement, spouses losing matrimonial homes are all made legal by secret filing. Now, this picture is a house that I owned with my mother, and because my mother wound up in abject poverty and in debt, and I didn't know why, and she didn't understand what was going on, that my brother had literally stolen the estate. And he did it legally. He had the legal right to do that. And there's more on my website in detail on how he got around doing that. But it's being done every day because of secret filing. As a registered owner, you don't even have the right to know that there's any change on title. And this is a property that was worth at the time well over $250,000. But because she was in such abject poverty and I had to sell in duress, I sold for almost half that. And she was over $88,000 in debt. And that's not just my mother. This happens to a lot of people. But this is just a sample of what can happen to you as a spouse. Now, I don't understand why lawyers don't seem to care. These are the properties that were involved. There was a duplex. There was a garage that was derelict, but the property itself was very large. You could build a 10-plex apartment unit on it. It was basically a vacant lot. And the matrimonial home was easily made into a duplex by the new owner. A solid brick garage where you could build an apartment on the second floor. And an 11-plex. Now, that's a very valuable estate worth over $1 million, and we wound up with absolutely nothing. The horror of what happened to us, it starts with lawyers not advising us of the fact that this secret filing is legal, and the police won't help you because it is legal to do anything you want in secret. So you got to be... I don't know how else to make people understand. Secret filing is banned in every other country but Canada. I mean, can you imagine? This is my mother now. The next picture I'm going to show you. Here she is, a few months before she died. She lost everything. And she was 95 before she even found out that she didn't even own the matrimonial home. Can you imagine after 61 years of marriage and at age 95, 18 years after your violent husband who has abused you for 61 years is dead, you suddenly discover you don't even own the matrimonial home because, in secret, he severed the joint tenancy. But in law, he's allowed to do that, and as a registered owner, you don't have the right to any kind of notification that you've now lost half your property. And you don't even have the right to be notified. Now in Saskatchewan, all of that is illegal. I'll go into that later. And by then she had depleted her life savings renovating these properties that she thought she owned. And under Section 7 of the Charter of Rights, supposedly, if your income is affected, it's illegal. Well, yeah, guess what? Try and get a lawyer and get that through court. I tried and I lost almost $100,000 plus another $200,000 trying. That was my stupidity because I trusted people who promised to help me, and it turned out they just all ripped me off. I'm not going to mention names, it doesn't matter. But everything I did was to protect my mother and every Canadian. That's all I cared about, was getting legal, democratic protection for every homeowner and every registered property owner. But nobody would help me. Now, can you imagine the horror of you own a property and this can only happen in Canada, okay? That's me when I lost my first properties to my disease, and I call it Made in Canada because all of these laws are only in Canada. They've been banned in every other country. Now, can you imagine what it feels like that you get a job out of town, and when you come back a couple of years later, say you're an engineer or you're an architect, I mean, people travel, you come back and you discover that somebody has put their name on title and now owns half your property? If you go to court to get your property back, it'll cost you between $60,000 to $100,000 in several years in court. A man in Hamilton, this happened to him, and what he decided to do was, because the property at that time, we hadn't hit a boom yet, it wasn't worth millions, it was only worth a couple of $100,000, and he didn't want to spend 6-7 years in court. I've been fighting in court and with lawyers for the last 18 years, so it's not fun. Anyway, he paid the person half, and he got title back. But the person involved had no legal real claim, but try proving that in court. Okay, so then mortgage fraud. Over 100 houses from Windsor and London and Toronto in 2005 all wound up with illegal mortgages worth millions of dollars. They never went to jail, the criminals. They just left the country with the money. And insurance, they were lucky. There was insurance that covered it. But millions of homes don't have title insurance. And title insurance is the only way that you can get, and that's on my website, how to get it. And you can only get it through a lawyer, and it's a one-time fee, and it only covers mortgage fraud. Now, even if you've had your home for 20 years, it'll cover it. But people don't know that. Lawyers themselves, most of them don't know it and don't do it when you buy a home. They don't bother with it. And realtors don't know it. So a lot of good it does you to have it, but it'll cost you, let's say your property's worth $500,000, it'll cost you about $1,000, and it's a one-time fee, and it's automatically null and void when you sell. Now, it's available on a new home, existing home, and of course, when you do borrow money, they automatically, your bank will have title insurance on fraud. But millions of Canadians don't have title insurance and don't know anything about it. And mortgage fraud is extremely common in Canada, and the reason is because they can file in secret, and as a registered owner, you do not even have the right to know that somebody who has applied even to put a mortgage on your home. Now, in Saskatchewan, automatically a written registered letter, and you have to have a signature of proof that they've received, the registered owner has received prior to any changes on title. And power of attorney can't do it. can't sever can't sever joint tenancy. You have to go to court, whether it's a divorce or a separation. A judge decides whether it's legal or not. So in other words, there's complete protection. So this kind of fraud doesn't happen in Saskatchewan. It's the only province where it can't happen. Now, I researched several other victims. They didn't want their names made public. And this is a copy of the Saskatchewan legislature. Severance can only be done by consent. And in the case of separation or divorce, well, you're in court anyway, and you'd get half. Okay, and that's under the Homesteads Act of 1989. Now, Statistics Canada have proven that all of this is really common. But what you're not hearing about, and the media has refused to publish this fact, and without public outcry, it's never going to happen in Canada. And my condition at 76 with Parkinsonism is terminal. I don't know how many years I have left. So I'm trying to put this up on YouTube so that it'll be there for historical purposes. By then, my website may be gone, and there isn't much I can do about that. But this information can be found with Google. I have posted it online. And secret filing is a law that was created by a Roman dictator 2,000 years ago. And it was there only to steal your property. That's right. It's there to steal your property. A law created by a Roman dictator 2,000 years ago is legal in Canada. This secret filing law is so criminal, it's banned in every country but Canada. It is still legal in Ontario, Newfoundland, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Quebec, Prince Edward Island, British Columbia, and Northwest Territories. All continue to have secret filing as legal. Alberta and Manitoba banned it, but they do allow for the severance of joint tenancy without consent. Well, if you're married, that's not fair. So what I'm after getting for every property owner and every spouse is the legal protection that we have in Saskatchewan. That means that no registered owner even has the right to be notified of any changes on title to your property in all of these other provinces except for Saskatchewan. And the only province with full spousal protection is Saskatchewan. I wish my mother and I had known that 18 years ago. We'd have moved to Saskatchewan. She would have died in her own home, wealthy, and I wouldn't be homeless. I would have kept my property in Wasaga Beach. And I would have sold it, and I would have gotten a beautiful cottage on a lake in Saskatchewan. But you know, that's hindsight. But for me, the real problem is this the kind of future you want for children? Is this the kind of what you want to see happen? These are beautiful young women. All of them are married and with babies. And you know that not one of them knows that they don't have spousal protection in Ontario. And their children may face what I faced someday, because this is going to continue. I have been unsuccessful in getting any media support whatsoever to get this law banned and to get proper rights for registered owners in Ontario. But that's just a sample of what I keep fighting for. Those beautiful young girls and their beautiful babies, and they're going to go through what I've gone through, a lifetime of horror, because this is not the democracy you think it is. No, despite the adversity of my Parkinsonism disease and being made homeless, I am going to continue to fight. I am stuck here in Ontario. I'm fortunate. My partner of 34 years took me in and rescued me. So as long as he's alive, I'm okay. And he takes good care of me. But that shouldn't have happened to my mother. It shouldn't happen to those beautiful young girls, and it shouldn't happen to me, and it shouldn't happen to those hundreds of thousands of people it's happened to that you've never heard of, because they all individually go to court, and they all individually drown in a system that is so corrupt that it isn't even close to being a democratic principles. Nothing democratic about the laws in Canada on property ownership. And I will fight to my last breath. But my time is running out, and I am asking for your support. Please share this information. Please help me get members of Parliament to ban this law and give every Canadian the same protection and rights as Saskatchewan. Americans have those rights. Europe have those rights. England has those rights. Every country but Canada. And I thank you for those who care. The lawyers themselves should be fighting this. This is an unjust law. I, as a handicapped senior, shouldn't be fighting this all by myself. My name is Trudi Trahan-Upchan. I am the founder of www.rights4realestate.com. Please share and help me get democracy for Canadians, hopefully before I die. Thank you. And God bless all you women and children who right now have no support. Very few men become a victim of this because it's the men that are running the show. Over and out. God bless.